Greetings, salutations, and welcome. So today I wanted to tell you about this little gold nugget that I have. I refer to it as my sentimental alloy. Some of my friends have been calling it the everything alloy. But the point of this little thing is in this tiny bar of metal is material that has been at just about every significant moment in human history, as well as just about every significant moment in my own personal history. I have been working on this for a number of years now, but I had a problem come up this last year that is causing me to have to start from the beginning. And I have this YouTube channel now with some success. So I wanted to take you through the process of what this is and why I do it. Now, let's start with what is this? It's a 22 karat piece of gold, which 22 karat gold means that it's 22 parts out of 24 parts gold, meaning that it's 22 parts gold, 2 parts something else. That something else is this alloy that you see over here, which is by and large silver. Now, what is the rest of that? Well, that's little bits of historical objects that I do not destroy. I want to be very clear. I do not destroy them, but I do remove pieces of them, as well as I've removed pieces of things that I've come across in my daily life, and then I've taken to wearing this to important events in my life as well. So let's start off with why. The why of this is I came to my house one day to find out that it had been broken into. And this really made me think, what in my life is irreplaceable? Now, of course, things can be replaced. You can always go out and get another pair of pliers, another watch, another paperweight, another coin, what have you. But it doesn't replace the specific things. It doesn't replace the watch I got for my 13th birthday. It doesn't replace this particular paperweight that took me like 2 years of searching for, or my original pair of pliers from starting with my jewelry making. And that led me down the route of trying to come up with what can I make that I can remake multiple times whenever I come across new materials that I want to add to it, as well as what could I, break into separate portions to put separate portions in separate places to have a physical hard backup of these things that matter to me. That way I can both carry with me all these historical things that matter to me, as well as if something ever happens, there is a hard backup. As they say, one is none, two is one. And if you're in data backup, if you don't have it backed up in two separate physical locations, that's a bad idea. So this allows me to back it up in physical locations outside of wherever the original artifact is. So I remake this every year. I'll be remaking this around Christmas time. And what I do is I melt it down and I add sort of new things to it, and we remake the necklace every year. So this is some of the leftovers from last year. All right. What you see ahead of you is all the different tools that I use to do this process. And like I said, something bad happened, so I had to restart it. This is what happened. Now, you may say, why is that bad? Well, it's bad because to me, this is about as close to perfection as I am capable of making. I want to show you this because like the flashing there, see the casting line? That is just how the casting line was. I didn't have to clean this thing up. And I was incredibly impressed with my capability of producing this. And I don't want to destroy it. So I lost the bulk of my original metal in this, which will be set aside. So it's time to start again. And how we're going to start is with this little group of alloy there. We are going to create a pile of 25 grams of silver. Then we're going to be adding material to that and then melting that down at the end of the year, alloying it with gold. We're going to go through that process when we come to it, but this is just a starting video. I promised myself I would be releasing one video a week. And well, today is Friday, so it's time to buck up and get that video out. This is what I wanted to start with. So this alloy is going to be made up of stuff that's sentimentally important to me. It's going to be made up of other materials that I've gathered up previously, and it's going to be made up of historical, significantly materials. Again, I will not be destroying things unless it's absolutely necessary, and unless it's absolutely inconsequential to historical preservation. I will talk to you about one particular thing that I am comfortable destroying in a moment here, and it's this piece, but I do have a couple others that I'll be talking about in the future. So why the jars in front of you? This jar allows me to be stable when I produce the sentimental material or historical dust. I can take a artifact, or in this case, just a piece of silver from last year. I can put it over the jar. I can remove material nice and safely, and the jar can't fall over easily. So that's why that is there. Now, why 5 little jars, 4 larger jars, and 1 other jar? Well, I like 10. So I had to come up with an excuse for 10, even though realistically I think I only need 5, maybe 6. So I have a jar for my quality melt, which is someday I hope to be able to get an inert atmosphere casting machine, or at least access to it, and in which case I will make a nice little ingot out of that. Then I have my all-time jar that contains materials from just about everything I've ever collected, and this I don't ever intend to work. It's just there as an emergency. Then I have stuff for this year that will be in this year's melt. Then I have stuff for 5 years from now, and then I'm going to be using this jar for the melt 10 years from now, which I think is kind of cool to spread it out over time. These 5 jars are for the next 5 years, so this year, next year, the year after, so on and so forth. Now, why so many? Like I said, I probably could get away with 5, the quality melt, the all-time this year, and 5 years from now. Well, when you melt down material, accidents can happen. We can have a crucible fracture, we can have a kiln have a problem, and that material can end up being lost nearly forever. And since this is, again, about making hard backups to hard backups, I like to have the option to do the melt again. Now, you may say, you're just collecting a tiny bit of dust off of these things. You may see that there's now a tiny little bit of dust in this jar. Why does that matter? Well, I used to say the amount of material I add to my alloy, if it were cyanide, would kill you. So the question is that a small amount? Well, I don't know if that's actually true anymore, but the game plan is if I were to have a kilogram of this 22 karat gold, meaning 1,000 grams, would every gram in that kilogram have a billion atoms from each of the artifacts added to it? And so that's kind of what I go off of. In which case, that's really not that much material. That's about as much material as you can physically see has about a billion atoms in it. So something like the size of a fleck of glitter is about enough to have a billion atoms in it. So generally, you'll see me taking 10 strokes of the file to each of these jars. So that's 100 strokes, of which at least, we're going to say at least 70, 80 of those are going to be added immediately to the alloy over time. 10 strokes for sure are going to be added this year. Hopefully 20 strokes are going to be added this year. And that's more than enough for the billion atoms. Now, why 25 grams? 25 grams was selected because the crucibles I have, 25 grams completely covers the bottom of the crucible. And that means that if I add dust to it, that dust will melt into the material nice and evenly, and we get a little glob, something like this. I believe this is about 15 grams. So clearly enough to finish the bottom of the crucible, but I would prefer 25 grams because this is 25 grams. So my ingot mold is 25 grams. That would allow me to cast one ingot like this, chop it up into pieces, and I would get 10 grams for next year's melt, and then 10 grams for the melt after that, as well as 5 grams to divide amongst a few different projects. 1 gram will be alloyed with gold, and I'll get the alloy for the year. 1 gram will be mixed with this silver, which I'll explain in a moment. 2 grams will be split apart and turned into coins. And then I have an additional 5th gram that I had a purpose for, but I'm very sorry I forgot it. Yes. That would be to create one of these things, which would be a year material that I'll be then adding to each subsequent year. All right, so that's why 25 grams. Now let's explain some of these materials. This is the material I really like to spread about. I like to put it different places, hide it different places. I carry it to show off to friends. And like I said, it is 1 gram of my special alloy base mixed with pure silver. So it still remains nice and shiny. And it creates kind of a backup. I would consider this very unpure, but it's technically more pure sentimental alloy than my 22 karat gold because, well, I guess it's actually not now that I really think about it, because that's 1% and that's far more than 1%. Interesting how that works. Anyway, well, it's not quite 1%, but you know what I mean. So the point being is that this is an additional backup. So I have like this one here is just a little too nice to do anything with. This is the first ring that I ever made. Yeah, it's a little shoddy, but it's the first one I ever made, so it's there. This is a charm that hangs from my windshield rearview mirror, so it goes on those adventures with me. I know this is all a little woo-woo to some people, but humans have enjoyed relics. Some people refer to them as relic metals in the coin industry. But I don't like that term because it gets associated with Catholicism. Not that I have anything against Catholicism whatsoever, but in terms of a Googleable term, if you search for relic metal, you're going to find Catholic things. You're not going to find relic metals in terms of coins or medallions, tokens, medals, however you want to refer to them, made from whatever they're depicting. We'll go over that in a moment here. So let's go over a few of these specific things. This is the oldest piece in this collection. This is from about 3 years ago when I had a problem happen, my first problem. If you look at this, you can see that it has a beautiful crystalline structure, almost like a meteorite. And I just couldn't bring myself to destroy it. So this contains all the sentimental material from me before a certain year. And that's unfortunate because that required me to recollect the material again. So I did that, and that's how I got the bulk of this material. So like this is from 2023 here. That's about 10 grams. So that's going to be the 10 gram base for this year. Then a few pieces of a shot that I casted. One of these bars that I made out of the material before I did other things with it. This is the first bead I ever made. I'm debating about destroying that. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Then coming down the line, these are materials that I use for the base of each of these jars. I like to have a bit of dust in the bottom of the jar so that as I mix in individual components, it has a bulking agent. So we have some pure silver. So I start off almost every collection event and end every collection event with some pure silver. Then I have a couple of little bronze bars that are like half bronze, half silver, which I still believe makes it bronze, made up of tiny fractions of lucky pennies and pieces of jewelry some of my friends gave me. Then, of course, I have my little bar here from 2023. This is pure metal in the same way that this is pure metal. But this one will never be reworked because I have good images of this, so I'm going to be removing material from that. Then, like, this is made of copper wiring from my favorite shopping center, and then a couple other little things here. This one's kind of funny. You see that it's marked tin, and that's because for a while I believed that the base of this should be tin because it has such a low melting point and loves to bond with things that I should start with that. And while I still add tin to all of my melts, I don't really find it very necessary. It creates slag, and I'm not too happy with it. But it will still be added because it melts at such a low temperature, it kind of keeps the dust from floating around if I decide to melt it with a blowtorch. Speaking of slag, this is slag from previous melts. I hope to someday be able to purify this metal and extract the metals from it. Until then, it is being stored in its own separate jar. This is just pure silver that I've played around with casting and messing around with. It'll be used to bulk this silver up to 25 grams. I already explained what this is. I already explained what that is. Went over this, went over that. So now we're on to what is this? This is wires from one of my cars. This is a piece of wire for one of my cars. This is one of the historical artifacts that I'll explain why is being destroyed. And these are tiny pieces of jewelry from friends of mine. So it's kind of cool that they were at important moments in my friends' lives. And this is a little bit of gold so that I can have some gold base material to this. And that was a ring that was on display at a little shopping cart in Maui. I bought it direct from the jeweler who was going to be melting it down for the scrap gold because he had shown it to someone and they had dropped it. And then in the process of trying to pick it up, it got stepped on and crushed. And now it's being used as a little bit of scrap material here. I like to have little nuggets of material in there to break up the dust if the dust ever gets clumped up. And that's actually what these pliers here are for, is these little pliers are to cut off pieces of material from these things here. And this little spring here of metal actually will contain whatever I cut off and keep it from flying around. My old boss used to refer to that as a clockmaker's prayer session. I apologize for the trash truck in the background if you can hear it, but like I said earlier, the goal is to get this video out today, and that means I kind of have to do this as a stream of consciousness, although I do have to say that this is like the 4th or 5th time I've tried to record this video. I'm getting better at it. So as for historical objects that are actively being destroyed, you know what? I am going to do a jump cut here, and we are going to wait for the trash truck to move, and then I'll get on to these little guys. All right, jump cuts are jump cuts. I believe the trash truck is gone. If it's not, I apologize once again. We'll get to that bridge when we cross it. Joke intended there. All right, so this is a historical object I'm actively destroying, as well as this is a historical object I'm actively destroying, one more so than the other. Now, you may look at this and say, oh my God, he cut up a coin and he's destroying it. While this looks like a coin, it was actually cast to resemble a coin and was made as a piece of jewelry. This is from the Mel Fisher Galleries. Mel Fisher was a man who discovered the shipwreck Etosha, and his family is still running it, if I'm not mistaken. And this is a fake coin made from real silver from the shipwreck of the Etosha. So they took like the really bad bars of silver and they made these pieces of jewelry out of them. And I've been using a little bit of that as some of the base material in all my previous melts because it's kind of neat. And then this here is actually a piece of a bronze bushing from a German Tiger tank, not a King Tiger tank, a German Tiger tank that was destroyed in Ukraine during World War II. They used bronze and brass and different components of the engine. So this was a bushing from one of the Maybach V12 engines. The trash truck is coming back. Jump cut. All right, jump cut's over. We're going to just run through the rest of this, come what may be. So yes, I am fully destroying these little pieces here, but I want you to know that this is already a fake that is made from the materials. A fake is a little harsh of a word, but it is true. And this is from a piece of what would have been scrap material. Something like this, I would never destroy for my project. I may remove a bit of material from one of the points here. I may remove some oxides, but I would never take a clip out of it in such a way that would diminish its beauty or its historical relevance. So I'm not going to take you through collecting all the dust from all these different things, but I will tell the story of why this is important and collect the dust from it on camera on weeks when I'm not making videos for other people. Like I said, the game plan is a video every Friday, and I thank you very much for getting to this point in the video. And If I don't have a video to make for someone else out of their sentimental material, I will show you what I'm making for myself. So like I said, even though I have 2022, I believe here, 2023, and 2024, I am going to be starting brand new for 2025. I will still count the things in here as part of my personal record, but for you guys, let's just say I'm starting from scratch, which I think is pretty cool. And that is the end of this video. If you could, please do subscribe if you're interested in seeing what historical artifacts I will be talking about in the future. My goal is to tell you the interesting stories behind each of them, how I believe that they are to be what they claim to be, because a lot of times you can't actually confirm whether or not the thing was there or not. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. But at the end of the day, you're always taking somebody's word at it if you weren't there yourself. And I think I have some interesting things to share with you on the weeks, like I said, where I'm not making videos for other people. Until then, I wish you the best in all of your endeavors, and thank you for joining me on this endeavor of mine.